Imagine waking up one day and realizing your job is gone. Not because you failed, not because your company collapsed, but because a machine learned how to do your job faster, cheaper, and without sleeping. That has got to hurt. This is not science fiction. Companies are actually laying off workers right now because AI tools are quietly replacing tasks people spent years learning. And because of this, the question is actually hanging in the air right now, and especially amongst young people. What happens when there is no more work left? And more importantly, and even more importantly, what happens to Africa, the youngest continent on earth, when this shift accelerates? Welcome to the Dummy Effect podcast. My name is Boomlangmia, and all I ask is hear me out. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel in every way that you can. Thank you very much. All right, let's go.
Jobs report shows some job gains in industries like healthcare, hospitality, and leisure, but concerns are growing about AI replacing some human workers.
It's here, the first humanoid robot housekeeper.
Thank you, Neo.
For $20,000, you can pre-order 1X's Neo robot now.
I feel like whenever conversations about AI and jobs come up, the tone is always extreme. It's always usually extreme. On one hand, they say AI would destroy work, collapse economies, and leave millions depending on government. The same government that already struggles to provide basic services. On the other side, people say not to worry because technology has always created more jobs than it has destroyed. If you ask me, I would say both sides sound very confident, but both sides are missing context, because the real story of technology and work is even messier, slower, and more uneven than both narratives admit. If we are really serious about understanding the future, we have to take a look at history first. And then after that, we look very carefully at Africa. We have been here before. The fear of technology replacing human labor is not new. In early 19th century Britain, textile workers began destroying industrial machines. These workers were not ignorant or anti-technology. They were skilled artisans whose livelihoods were being erased faster than society could absorb them. They were called the Luddites.
There's a word in the dictionary called Luddite, and everyone should know what it means. 200 years ago in England, thousands of men were angry. They broke into textile factories and smashed the machines inside.
Destroy every machine!
Because of a new clothing machine that arrived. It made clothes 5 times faster than any human, and it was replacing humans fast. So the workers fought back. They called themselves Luddites.
Today, the word is used as an insult, but historically it wasn't.
Ugh, you're such a Luddite. Did I just hear Luddite slander? Actually, you've been fed anti-Luddite propaganda. The real Luddites didn't just hate technology for no reason. They were textile workers in 19th century England who fought for labor rights at a time when unions were severely repressed. The Luddites used what was later called collective bargaining by riot. If there was a factory where the owner was using the threat of automated machines to lower wages and repress workers' rights, the Luddites would show up with sledgehammers and smash those machines to pieces.
What came after that was electricity, and then assembly lines, and then computers. In the 1960s and 70s, economies openly worried that computers would lead to mass unemployment. In the 1980s and 90s, office automation sparked fears that clerical and administrative work would disappear. You can still find newspaper headlines predicting the end of work. But something interesting kept happening. Jobs did not just vanish entirely. They changed. Reasonably, some roles disappeared, but then new ones emerged. Productivity rose, living standards improved, but unevenly though. Now, the thing is, the real damage was never technology itself. It was the speed of change and who paid the cost during transition. So what I'm trying to say is the problem was never the technology itself. The problem was the speed at which the technology changed and the human or job loss that happened during that transition period. But why does AI feel more dangerous than past technologies? That is because it doesn't just automate physical labor. It also automates cognitive tasks. That's crazy. That's what makes it dangerous, because AI can write, summarize, analyze, code, design, and even simulate conversations. And these were once considered save human skills. That means white collar work, not just factory labor. According to the International Labour Organization, a significant share of tasks across clerical, administrative, and service jobs can now be automated partially or fully using existing AI tools. Danger! And these are jobs like data entry and record keeping, document drafting and template writing, basic scheduling and calendar management, customer support responses, travel booking and information retrieval, reception and frontline inquiry tasks. These are some of the jobs that can now be automated partially or fully using existing AI tools. And unlike past technologies, AI can scale instantly. Once it works everywhere. And that compresses decades of economic adjustments into a few years. So when you see or hear people say they feel anxious about AI, they are not being irrational. Alright, they are responding to a historical fast disruption, because AI is actually disrupting everything right now, especially when it comes to work. But again, this disruption does not land the same everywhere. Let's look at Africa. Africa changes the entire conversation. By 2050, more than 1 in 4 people of working age globally will be African. Now let that sink in. And this is according to the United Nations population projection. One thing people really don't understand about Africa is that Africa is not aging like Europe, and it is not shrinking like parts of East Asia. Africa is getting younger rapidly. Every year, millions of young Africans are entering the labor market, and this has always been framed as both an opportunity and a risk. If jobs exist, Africa benefits from a demographic dividend. If jobs do not exist, unemployment, migration pressure, and instability increases. More like what is happening right now. Now, let's introduce AI into the equation. Here is the uncomfortable reality. Believe it or not, many African economies are still industrializing, and automation threatens to reduce the number of labor-intensive jobs that historically have absorbed young workers. Manufacturing, call centers, basic data processing. These are exactly the sectors AI targets first. So you see, the fear isn't abstract. It is structure. The fear is actually very, very structural. People are not just scared for no reason. The system is actually creating this fear. The myth of no work left. Here is where the conversation often collapses into exaggeration. The very idea that AI will eliminate all work misunderstands economics. Even I did not understand this. I thought we were done for, like it was over for normal everyday work. Now everybody's just gonna be jobless, and governments are gonna have to go down because more people are gonna be depending on government, and governments are not gonna, governments cannot even provide basic services, and it's gonna be World War III basically. But no, apparently we don't understand basic economics. I do not understand how economic works. According to my research, human needs do not just disappear because care, infrastructure, education, creativity, governance, repair, and local services cannot be fully automated. What actually changes is where value is created. The danger is not job extinction, but job mismatch, where us as young people train for yesterday's economy but while entering tomorrow's labor market. I don't think that problem is caused by AI. I just think AI simply exposes it faster. Government dependency and real risk. Now, this is another concern that really deserves seriousness. If work disappears faster than alternatives emerge, people will now rely more on government for income support. And in regions where public institutions are already under strain, this creates big risk. History already shows that mass unemployment combined with weak safety nets leads to unrest. And that is not because people are lazy, but because dignity is tied to economic participation. When a lot of people lose their jobs at the same time and there is no real help from the system, the government, things usually go bad fast. And that is not because people don't want to work. Work is how people feel useful, respected, and in control of their lives. When someone cannot earn, cannot provide, and cannot see a future, frustration builds. And that frustration does not stay quiet forever. It turns into anger, protest, and sometimes chaos. And this is an example of how AI-driven job loss isn't just an economic issue. It is a social one, especially in places with young population and weak support systems like much of Africa. This is the point where saying everything will work out stop being helpful, because markets won't magically solve it and government can't do it alone. Someone has to actually manage this shift. what actually matters now. For Africa, the question is not will AI take jobs? The question is who controls AI, who adapts education systems, and who builds local capacity instead of importing dependency. In other words, what all this comes down to is control. Who owns AI tools? Who decides how they are used? And who benefits from them? Because if you don't own the AI tools, and if all the AI belongs to a few companies or a few countries, then everyone else is reacting to decisions they didn't make. And that's risky, especially for Africa. And then there is education. Because if schools don't change, people get trained for a world that does not exist anymore. Meaning you can do everything right. School, exams, graduation, and still can't find your place in the economy. And that right there is already the reality for a lot of young people across Africa today. Crazy work. Finally, are countries building their own skills and technology, or are they just importing tools that they don't understand and can't control? Because if you only import AI, you don't gain power, you gain dependency. You rent the future instead of owning it. This is even more important for Africa because with a young population, the stakes are even more higher, way higher. Because whoever controls the tools controls opportunities. That is not fear mongering. That is how technology has always worked, from factories to computers to the internet. And this is what it all boils down to. Countries that invest early in digital literacy, adaptive education, local entrepreneurship, and AI assisted productivity, not just AI consumption, will shape and control the future. That is the whole reason why the United States and China are not just using AI. They are competing to control the infrastructure, the talent, and the whole standard behind it. While much of the world are consuming AI as content, these countries are building it as power. These countries do not risk becoming passive users of systems that are built elsewhere. And they understand something important. AI does not just automatically make things fairer. It can either widen inequality or it can expand people's ability to produce, earn, and compete. And the difference is not luck. It is policy, preparation, and it's whether countries have the agency to make their own choices. The future isn't pre-written. Every technological revolution feels catastrophic while it's happening. History, on the other hand, does not guarantee comfort, but it does offer perspective. AI is not destiny. It is a tool. And like every powerful tool before it, it ends up serving the values and priorities of the people controlling it. Africa's youth are not a problem in an AI-driven future. They are the deciding factor. We are the deciding factors. You are the deciding factor. I am the deciding factor. And what I mean by this is the outcome of how AI affects Africa isn't predetermined. Africa's young people, through their skills, entrepreneurship, creativity, and engagement with technology, will determine whether AI becomes a tool for opportunity or a driver of inequality. In concluding, jobs are not simply vanishing. The rules of work are changing, and the outcome depends on who adapts and how they adapt. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and see you on the next one. According to the in the 1980s and 90s, office automation sparked fears that fucking hell, what the is going on? You are the deciding factor. I am the deciding factor. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and see you on the next one.